Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Living Resources telecast. Did you know you can eat healthy meals for $6 a day? Yeah, that's right. I said $6 a day. Today we have a guest who has done this for nearly 6 years, and she's here to share how to shop for affordable, healthy food choices. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Rae Baker, your OSU Healthy Relationships Program Specialist. Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Living Resources telecast. Today we have with us Carol Smathers. She's one of our OSU field specialists for the nutrition and wellness area. Welcome, Carol, and thank you for joining us for this Healthy Eating Made Affordable topic. But before we get started on this important topic, could you take a moment to introduce yourself and just share with our viewers what it is, what's your role for OSU Extension?
Thanks, Rae. Yes, in my role with OSU Extension, I work with community organizations and decision makers to help create healthier nutrition and physical activity environments. One example of that is that I head up the Ohio Farm to School program. And in this program, we support changes that help schools and early care sites to better purchase, serve, and teach kids about nutritious, locally produced foods. In this role, I'm always thinking about what can help make the healthy choices more appealing and more accessible.
Okay, great. Well, I'm excited to see how we can eat healthy food choices on a budget. So let's go ahead and get started.
Almost everyone is interested in talking about the cost of food these days. It's my hope that viewers will gain new perspectives through listening to our discussion. And it's really my interest in asking what makes healthier choices more appealing and more accessible that led me to want to start eating on a very low budget. For years, I'd heard people say, healthy foods are just too expensive, or of course, people on a limited budget eat a lot of fast food. Wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, I've heard that often too.
Right.
Right.
And so I was familiar with the USDA does estimates of what it costs to eat a healthy diet called the Thrifty Food Plan. And I decided to just give that a try for myself and be able to share it with others. And so I did. And what I didn't realize is how much I would enjoy the whole process. I have 2 degrees related to health promotion, and I think much of my expertise and what I'm sharing today comes from my experiences in actually doing it for myself, eating a very low budget. Our household budget was between January 2018 and August 2022 was $1.50 per meal per person. Mm-hmm. And then we increased it last year. And then starting in this year in 2023, it's been $2 per meal per person. And we intend to stay there, for through the end of the year and beyond, hopefully. There's a lot to know about this process. So I think we'll be sharing some links to recordings of other webinars that I've done to give you a lot more background information.
Wow. So you really could eat for $2 a meal per person. Absolutely. I need to apply this to my family. I'm all in. I'm all ears. Let's hear it, Carol. How did you do this?
Absolutely. It's totally possible. And I like to remind people, I didn't just start this overnight. It took me months to figure it out. It was clunky at first. I had to, trial and error, figure out what foods to buy, what could go together, how many servings I would get out of an item. It took a while. And the other thing is, if you're feeding your family, you've got to bring them on board too. Mm-hmm. In 2018, when I went to my husband and said, hey, I'm going to start eating for $1.50 a meal. Do you want to do it with me? You can imagine. Of course, he said, no way. No way.
Yeah, I remember we've worked about 7 years together, Carol. And I remember when you started this about 6 years ago saying, not on board.
Not
He
on
was
board.
happy. He had his own cupboard with his own food.
That's it. We had our own separate shopping trips and
Yep.
we cooked our own meals. And we did that for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Then what happened was, he kept looking over and saying, wow, that really smells good, or that looks so tasty. Hey, would you make some of yours for me? And I did that so often that eventually he said, well, I'll do it with you. I'll do the $1.50 a meal. And he's been all in ever
And he
since.
hasn't even looked back. He's all in and he's
Neither
happy.
of us have looked. So people ask how we know that our meals are just $2 each. We don't really, we don't track the cost of the individual meals. We do it more in average meal cost by each shopping trip. And I'll give you an example. So the first shopping trip for this year, we set out to buy for 12 days. So 6 meals a day for the 2 people. That comes to 72 meals. That set our spending limit, our maximum, at $144. Then what happens is I go to the store, buy the food. I might have come in a little under, a little over. So I take the actual amount that I spent, I divide that by the $2, and that gives me a target number of meals. And that's important because the rule in our household is we don't step foot back in the store. We don't buy any more food until we've consumed the target number of meals.
Okay, that's a good tip to take away.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really helps to stretch out what you have.
Yes.
And on that note, I want to show you, I want to point out the photo on this slide before I continue. This is a picture of all the food left in the kitchen before we did that $143 shopping trip. So we get down to, pretty minimum supply. This is all the food in the cupboard. There's no other cupboard or pantry. And this is all the foods from the refrigerator and freezer put out on the counter.
Wow. Okay. That's a good visual to see.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It took me a while to get used to having a lot less in the kitchen. We would use things up. But it was just an adjustment. I'm very used to it now. Here's some photos of typical shopping trips, including my very last shopping trip on the upper right. Take a quick look. There you can see here we buy a lot of fruits and vegetables, mostly fresh, some canned, some frozen. We have a variety of proteins. There's everything here from hamburger to chicken breast to bacon, ham, and some plant-based proteins, a variety of grains, some whole grains, and dairy, so milk, and a variety of cheeses. And what you don't see here is a lot of highly processed foods. Those are the foods that contain a lot of added sodium and sugars. In our budget, they're just too expensive. We don't buy them. But we do include things like, you'll see here, chips and cookies and chocolate and coffee and occasionally some ice cream.
So you have the treats in there, but I just noticed looking at these illustrations, you're eating good. I mean, you're eating good. You're not sacrificing. I mean, this looks like
we're not sacrificing.
You're eating very well on this $2 a meal budget.
The treats are there. The thing is, we eat them in small portions because if we have, too many chips the first few days, we're not having any towards the end, and we're not going to go back and buy more. So, we're very careful about our portions.
Very mindful.
Here is the photo of that first shopping trip of the year that I talked about. When our target was $144, we spent $143.29. This, along with the food that I showed in that previous photo, the inventory in the kitchen, these foods alone provided 72 meals. And when people ask, well, what do you buy? I say we start with the building blocks of a healthy diet. Many people are surprised to hear that we do not plan out our meals and we don't know ahead what we're going to eat each day of the week. For people who like to do that kind of planning, eating on a low budget like this will work very well. And if you're the kind of household like ours, where you're just not sure day to day who's going to be home, what time you're going to eat, who's going to cook, what you're going to feel like eating, this can be for you as well.
The majority of families
This can be for you
all
as
over the
well,
place. Right.
right?
So this is flexible. Yeah.
It's very flexible,
Mhm.
and we don't use a lot of recipes. We tend to do more. We eat our favorite flavors. We eat kind of the bowl approach. I always give the example of when you have a spaghetti dinner, you cook some pasta, you heat up some sauce, you cook up your favorite vegetables, you maybe add some Italian seasoning, you're going to make some garlic toast, you're going to put together a salad and toss it with some dressing, but you haven't used any recipes, right? And you've made a complete delicious dinner. So
Right.
that's what many of our dinners are like. We start with a grain, we add a protein, our favorite sauce. Maybe we're stir frying vegetables and adding a Chinese General Tso sauce, and we make really wonderful meals, but we don't use a lot of recipes.
So when you say avoid recipes, what's that mean? I see on your illustration on your slide, it says avoid
Right.
recipes. Yeah. What's that
Right.
mean?
It occurred to me very early on that to follow, a lot of new recipes was going to add significant cost to our purchases, because so often recipes call for, a little bit of an expensive ingredient. You got to buy the whole container, you use a little tiny bit, and you put it on your shelf and you don't use it again. Also, recipes tend to give the message that you can't make that meal if you don't have 100% of all these items that are on the ingredient list. And then third, recipes just, they take time to learn. You're not sure if you're going to get it right. Whereas when we do the meal creation method, the bowl approach, we always have what we need, because we're starting with what we have, and we use up what we have. We have a lot less food waste.
You're using the spices and the things that you like in those bowls
in those bowls in different combinations. And we're buying sauces, we're buying pre-made sauces, we're buying delicious sauces to add to our vegetables and our proteins. And what I say is the store is doing my cooking for me. When I open that jar and pour it on, it's, the meal's delicious and it's ready. I wanted to share with you some photos of the meals that we had in those first couple of weeks of the year, the foods that were provided through that $143 purchase.
So these are great.
Yeah, breakfast.
These are great. Yeah.
Whole grain cereals, dairy, we've got milk, we've got Greek yogurt, we've got coffee, and we always have fresh fruit. And then, some breakfasts will have French toast and sausage or an egg burrito. And I'll share some lunches.
No wonder your husband came over.
He
wow,
did.
Look at these. These look great.
And when you think about for each of those columns, the building blocks of a healthy diet, in each category, a serving of those foods, for the most part, costs between 20 and 50 cents. Now, for the proteins that we buy, it's going to be higher. So it's going to range from, plant-based proteins. A serving of beans is going to be about 20 cents, all the way up to, the white meat chicken breast. That's going to be about $1 a serving.
Okay.
But then when you look at these meals that we make, you can see if each component is 20 to 50 cents, dollar max, you can easily put together a full plate of food for $2 or less. So for lunches, we were eating salads and chili and soups and various sandwiches and sandwiches on the go and pizza, just a variety of things. And for our dinners, through that purchase, we had breaded chicken and rice. We had Brussels sprouts with that. We occasionally have fish or seafood. As I mentioned, we have spaghetti dinners, stir fries, Asian stir fry, pizza, and then the Tex-Mex, the Southwest flavors, fajita. We often make our
Look at these dinners. They look like something you get in a restaurant, and you're spending $2 a meal.
Because that's what the components of the meal cost. That's just, they're very, the basic ingredients of a healthy diet are not expensive.
Carol, thank you for doing all this work for our viewers because this is such a good guide to get people started.
Yeah, thanks, Rae. Yeah, I also wanted to throw in a few photos from other parts of the year because, just like anyone, we change up our diet depending on the season and what's available and what the weather is, and we'll grill out and we'll get watermelon. And so
These look great.
we really do get a lot of variety throughout the week and throughout the year.
We're all coming over to your place for dinner.
Great. I like to share with people that in my case, my grocery list is actually an Excel spreadsheet. It's got pre-populated amounts for the items because I buy so many of the items, commonly over and over. I can put the price in, and then when I make my list, I actually just move the dollar amount over to the yes, I'm going to buy it column, and then the Excel spreadsheet adds it up for me. And I have a very, very close estimate of what I'm going to spend before I walk into the store. And that saves me time as well, because I know what I'm going to buy and I know what I'm not going to buy. And then as I go, you see that additional column, I actually note the price there, what it is that day, and it might be a little under. If it's over a lot, I either decide not to buy it or I buy less of something else. And by doing that sort of over under, it allows me to stay close to my target. And you can see here, my max was 144 and came out at 143.29. So
this is fantastic.
Pretty close. And if you don't use Excel, just you write down on a piece of paper and note the prices and copy that off for the next time you go. I did go back and type in the actual prices into that Excel list. What that enables me to do is to show you the percent of my purchase that I used on different categories. And what I like to point out here is that, over a third of what I spent, 34%, was on fruits and vegetables. And often what I hear people say is, oh, I can't buy a lot of fruits and vegetables because they're so expensive. They get the bad rap. People say, oh, I have to buy potato chips because a bag of potatoes is so expensive. Just remember, it's those fresh potatoes, it's the fresh fruits and vegetables that really let you prepare a lot of meals, really let you stretch your purchase. That's kind of counter to what a lot of people think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what would you tell people about how to really keep their grocery spending low? How would you tell?
Well, actually, wrote down a list of things that I used to think were good for saving money. And then early on, and when I started actually shopping on a very low budget, I realized that these maybe, aren't as practical. And a couple of them are this notion of buying in bulk or stocking up on sale items. Well, people in a really tight budget need, you're buying just enough to serve balanced meals to your family until you get more resources. So this notion of buying a lot of one thing just to put it on the shelf, it doesn't add up for us. And then cooking large quantities, sometimes that makes sense, although it only works if you can restrict yourself to just eating one serving of what you make and properly storing the rest and then using it up pretty quickly. If you eat 2 servings, you're doubling the cost of your meal. And then coupons, we don't use coupons mostly because coupons tend to be issued for those higher priced, high processed foods. And we like to stick to those building blocks of the healthy diet.
That is so true. That is so true.
Everything from scratch. I don't think I could bake bread for what I can buy it. And a can of prepared beans fits perfectly well into my $2 per meal budget. I don't need to be cooking dry beans. And then we talked about how recipes add to the cost of your purchase because you have to buy so many ingredients. And then finally, it turns out that the more choices you have, the harder it is to make decisions. And you think about the people that go into a well-stocked kitchen and say, oh, there's nothing to eat, and order out. So
My kids, my teenagers. There's nothing. We have all this food.
Right. And we just find it so much easier to prepare our meals. We start with fewer choices, and it makes shopping so much easier when we go to, I recommend people start with the smaller, like mid-sized discount stores rather than the superstores, which just can be overwhelming.
Oh, yes. And those stores are set up to coax you to spend more.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And spending less on your groceries is a win-win. It's a win for your budget. It's a win for your health, as you mentioned, right? Because when it gets down to it, the only way to spend less is to buy less. And in this case, you're buying fewer processed items. You're buying smaller amounts for smaller portions. And when buying less leads to consuming better food patterns, then you're getting closer to the recommended portion size. You're reducing your calories, your added sodium, your added sugars. You're able to maintain a healthier weight. It's a win-win.
Definitely. And these strategies help our viewers to win-win and do it in a way that will benefit them all the way around, benefit their budget, benefit their health. Because didn't you, I've noticed, Carol, since you've been doing this, you look healthier, leaner, your skin. You and I were having this discussion earlier about how it helped your skin, your hair, everything, eating this type of diet.
Sure. Just by changing the portion sizes, that throughout that first year, I lost a half a pound per week, which is a very reasonable change, but that netted, a 22-pound weight loss that stayed off for years.
So and you look fabulous.
It really can make a difference, and it can be an easy way. I was not trying to lose weight.
And you feel better. You said your energy level, everything.
Yeah. So we found that the way, a very simple way for us to control our portion sizes was to serve plated meals rather than serving family style. And you saw those photos, we arrange the plate, we bring the food to the table, and that's our meal. That's what we're going to eat, just like at a restaurant when you're given a plated meal. There's no seconds. And so we just really enjoy, because it does look so appetizing. And people ask, how do you know what a serving is? And here's a helpful guide. When the package says that a serving is a half cup or a couple tablespoons, you can actually kind of visualize it by the size of your hand. And so I recommend that people have those sort of, helpful little shortcuts in their head.
That's a great visualization to keep in mind. The size of your fist is a serving size for you.
Right.
That's a great illustration. Yes.
And I know not everybody's ready to just jump in and do meal creation and make up meals from what they have in their kitchens. So if you're looking for recipe ideas using those basic building blocks of a healthy diet, hey, I really recommend celebrateyourplate.org. This is from OSU Extension, from the SNAP-Ed program and other partners. Very searchable recipes. They're delicious. These have all been taste tested. Try out celebrateyourplate.org.
Nice. Good resource.
And another question I get is, well, hey, is this just possible for you because you maybe have a fancy kitchen with fancy equipment, or you have like advanced cooking skills? And I'm here to tell you, I have none of those things. So I've tried to boil it down to, well, what are the skills that I've recognized that I do have that allow me to do this? You've got to be able to cut up your fruit and vegetables and meat. You need to be able to stir fry, saute, roast vegetables to really bring out the flavor in those vegetables. It's helpful if you can cook rice and other grains like quinoa, and then poaching chicken breast, which is just simmering it until it's cooked through. And then lastly, opening jars and cans. As I mentioned before, having fewer choices, both where you shop and in your kitchen, actually makes shopping and meal preparation easier. And it's true. We really do eat a lot of things over and over in our household, but 100% of those things are foods that we absolutely love. So it's not a problem at all. We have go-to foods and we go to them. And here are some of our go-to foods. So I love making chili. It's especially in the winter, and I love it because I can always have the ingredients on hand. You see there cans of tomatoes, beans, and frozen corn, and some spice. It takes me 12 minutes to throw together a pot of chili, less time than it takes to make that corn muffin that goes with it. And then, as I mentioned, we stir fry a lot of vegetables, and I either put on a great Chinese General Tso sauce or a Indian flavored sauce, or sometimes just stir them up and add Italian seasoning and put those with another meal. And then finally, I think my favorite eat it a lot meal is just the Southwest flavors, burritos, quesadillas, fajitas, and we add some roasted sweet potato wedges. But you can see with all these meals, I haven't used a recipe. I've put together what I have on hand, and it's delicious. So, I say avoid recipes, and there's one recipe we couldn't live without, and that's the recipe I'm sharing with you here. It's for homemade granola. I love this recipe. It's got basic ingredients. I know what's in it and what's not in it, no additives, and it costs about a quarter of what you would buy this granola for in the store.
Looks good.
So
that's one of your go-tos.
That's one of my go-tos. Now, this is possible for our household, but the good news is there's national data to support that eating healthy on a very low diet is on a very low budget is possible as well. The Thrifty Food Plan is one of 4 food plans that estimates the actual cost of nutritious diets. They use actual price data, big, sets of actual food prices from across the country. And so this is based on what people are actually paying. It's possible. The Thrifty Food Plan is really important because these estimates are what is used to actually determine the amount of monthly assistance that people will get on the food assistance program through SNAP. But it's great. They reevaluated it in 2021. The new and improved Thrifty Food Plan recognizes that it's going to take some planning and at-home prep, like I talked about. But the great thing is it includes more convenience foods, and it allows for individual and cultural preferences. What is your affordable per meal cost? I do it for $2 a meal. The Thrifty Food Plan says currently the cost is about $2.67 per meal. So could you do it for $3? Would you want to, viewers out there, could you put together healthy meals for $4 where you live? And can you make room in your budget for those healthy foods first, and then add the other goodies on top of that?
Thank you so much for your time today, Carol. This has been helpful information to show our viewers how to eat healthy foods for less, and how that can be done with some thoughtful planning and mindful choices. My 2 big takeaways are: 1, stock my kitchen with those foundation staple foods, and 2, avoid using exact ingredients on recipes to help me budget meals at $2 or $3 or $4 a meal, depending on what your actual cost is for your family. If you viewers have any questions for us, please do not hesitate to reach out. Our contact information is listed in the credits. And please feel free to contact your local county extension office to get connected with all the great resources that we have to offer. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.